Hey everyone, welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. I am your host, Lachelle Weemy. You guys, today we get a chance to talk to Daniela Wolfe, and she is going to knock your socks off with inspiration and practical tools to help you get unstuck, to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. She's going to share all the coolness with this cool framework that she uses, and I cannot wait to dive into all of her inspiration. So welcome, Daniela, to the show. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you so much, Lachelle. I'm so excited to be here today.
So, sister, why don't you do us justice because you're going to do a better job than I am on how it is that you show up in the world today? Like, what is it that lights your soul on fire, and how do you help people?
So, like you said, I'm Daniela Wolfe. My business is Bestie Life. And I created that out of a passion of self-care and talking about self-care, doing my own self-care, and helping kind of empower women to find the time and space to do that self-care. And so, as I talk to other moms, other women, we all kind of share this same theme of busy, burnt out, stressed, and overwhelmed. And I have, found that by not only practicing certain things myself, but being able to help others kind of shift their mindset, look at their time planning, and then look at their overall kind of practical self-care framework,
Yeah.
they are able to kind of get unstuck and ditch that guilt and overwhelm when it comes to finding the time, productively manage all the things they need to do during the day, and still have the space and energy left to find fun and self-care and all that
Yes.
space that they've been craving and looking for.
Oh my gosh, I love that. This is breaks my heart, honestly. And so if this person that's listening, like I want to talk to you actually directly, but I had somebody post a comment on my Facebook group last week when I talked about self-care and what is it that you're doing today to promote self-care in your life. And she's like, self-care is overrated. And
Mm.
what I want to just really highlight in this conversation is if you're one of those people who are feeling like, yeah, self-care is overrated, I want to remind you that overwhelm is a choice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Burnt out is a choice. Stress is a choice. And I know that that sounds really harsh, but truly, if we don't choose to work on the ways that we can help balance our energy and to balance our workload and balance our attitude around what it is that we have to do, you're going to be stuck in overwhelm and burnt out. And
Mm-hmm.
so making that choice to put yourself first and to utilize the tools that you have available to you will help you to level up. It'll help you to perform better, don't you think?
Absolutely. It helps you be more creative. It helps you show up better with your family,
Yeah.
at your job, and for yourself, as well as I just want to bust the myth. I get kind of, I don't know what the word is, frustrated, annoyed. Like self
Yeah.
care, yeah, it can be overused. It can be a buzzword. And I think it's really misinterpreted. I think it's got a bad rap because people see it as a luxury, as these spa
Yeah.
days and getting
Yeah.
your nails done and
Yeah.
massages and everything. And the way I teach and practice self-care is the complete opposite. It is these moments throughout your entire day. It's these micro habits, and it's everything from the way you sleep, the way you eat, the way
Yes.
you move, the way you connect with others,
Mhm.
how you think about money. Like these
Yeah.
are all part of your self-care. And when you reframe how you look at it and how you implement it throughout your day with that intentionality, it is so powerful that you can, change the complete vibe in your life.
Oh my gosh. And it literally helps you level up
Mm-hmm.
your life, level up in every area that you're trying to completely scale yourself. So I love that so much. And I really would, be interested to find out like, how is it that you became so stinking passionate about this particular niche, this topic? Tell me your origin story.
Sure. So, as a social worker for over 26 years, I mean, these were some of the things I was trained in
Yeah.
professionally, whether it was mindfulness, coping skills, stress management.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of work always helping other people with it. But it wasn't until I really went through kind of my own struggles. When my kids were younger, they were about 4 and 6 months old. I went through a divorce. And so I was a single working mom. And at the time, I had, a lot of those limiting beliefs where I had to, prove that I could do it all, be it all. I didn't want my kids to, be judged or felt like they had any less because of it. And so I definitely overextended myself. I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't taking care of myself. And I definitely hit that wall of burnout. And I realized I was irritable. I was snapping more than I wanted to. I wasn't who I knew I could be. And I wasn't the mom I wanted them to know. This wasn't the person I wanted my daughter to look up to and think that's what we're growing up to become or anything like that. And so I started taking some super small steps. It was, Oprah had her gratitude challenge, and I was doing that at night where I would just write down 3 things that I was grateful for. Maybe I got my favorite banana smoothie. Maybe the sun was shining that day. Maybe
Yeah.
someone held the door for me, and realizing it was finding those small moments of joy throughout my day that was just the beginning. Then I started taking some time for working out and being able to prioritize that. And I know that's where some of the guilt can come in, putting my kids in the childcare at the gym for even a half an hour. But I found as I worked through that and I did it, they'd come back so excited and they couldn't stop talking and sharing what was going on. And I was in a
Yeah.
good mood because I did something good. And as we started to make these little shifts throughout our day and our week, that it just changed the whole tone of how the rhythm of
Yeah.
what was going on and how I was able to roll with things and cope with things, because life still happens.
Yeah.
Bad things would still happen, but I could just work through it in a
Yeah.
different way. It's kind of the way how I define balance. Balance isn't about everything being equal, but
Yeah.
balance is how you adapt and pivot and have that resilience in those boundaries.
Mhm.
And that's what helped me kind of slowly transition into this better place. And I found as I was doing this, and I just kind of talk about, what I was doing, how I was
Yeah.
feeling, what was going on. People would come to me or share with me, friends even would be like, sent me a picture like, I decided to go and read for 20 minutes because of something you said instead of running errands. I bought the shoes because you know what? You just made me realize it's too short and I got to take care of myself and do
Mhm.
something fun to me. And I realized like we were all kind of, I think, looking for that validation and permission to
Yeah.
do these things. And until we kind of support each other in doing
Yeah.
that so that no one's feeling judged, no one's feeling like they should be doing something else,
Yes.
can it really be accessible to everybody.
Oh my gosh, we should on ourselves constantly all day long,
Mm-hmm.
don't you think? And it's the guilt that really keeps us from stepping into truly embracing self-care. And I think that that is to our detriment, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we're truly not able to perform at the level that we want to in so many different areas of our life. And when you said should, it really made me think of, oftentimes I'm guilty of this. I don't know if you are too, Daniela, but this like or and this or mindset,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm either this or I'm this. I can do this or I can do this. And when you said, I went to the gym for 30 minutes and I felt guilty for dropping my kids off, like I can completely relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to have a mindset switch, just like, what if I could take care of myself and my kids could have a great day?
Yeah.
And I thought
Mm-hmm.
about that. I felt, gosh, there was one time where I don't remember if I was having to go somewhere or what, but my kids were going to end up spending the day with their grandpa. Okay. And I felt so guilty for putting him out because I felt I had some deep seated, things of being a bother to people. And I
Right.
felt guilty because I wasn't being a good mom. And then I'm like, hold tight. You get to go and do this amazing thing that's going to make the family better. And your kids get to spend a whole day with their grandpa and make memories for both of them that they will never be able to take away.
Yeah.
Living the and life, gosh, how more powerful is that than living in the should or life, don't you think?
Absolutely. The and life, I get to do these
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
versus have to, as well as, we can be a good employee and a good mom and a great wife and a great
Yes.
friend. And
Yes.
I think too, we realize we're modeling for our kids. Our kids learn not from what we say a lot of the times, but from
Yeah.
what they see us doing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
how we take care of ourselves is how we're teaching them to take care of ourselves. And
Yeah.
so it's so important, I think, just to from a modeling standpoint
Oh
as
my
well. But
gosh.
that limiting belief part is our biggest obstacle. That's why mindset is such, a big component of my framework, because I think being able to shift those mindset, it's not a
Yeah.
one and done. It's like
Right.
you said, it's a practice. It's something we need to
Yes.
keep kind of ingraining and working through.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things, because you said something that was really cool that I wanted to highlight real quick, that you said that you can be a great employee and a great mom and a great, whatever. And I think that sometimes we can get sucked into the trap of thinking that we can have all of that at the exact same moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is when we can give ourselves the permission to be all of those things and done well, but allowing ourselves to do it in a slightly separate space. And so
Right.
that when I'm at work, I get to be at work and I get to be the best I can. And when I'm with my kids, I can be the best that I can be with them. And one of the ways that I think of balance that has really helped me out, because I think balance to me feels like it's this like state that we all want to achieve and we want to get there, right? And it's like this destination. And if I think about it, if I'm standing on a balance beam or a tightrope or anything like that, it is like the most stressful time, right? Because you don't want to fall
Hmm.
and it's just you feel wobbly and it's really hard to move forward very quickly because you're so afraid of falling off. Am I right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the way that I look at it is like I'm ice skating. Now, even though I'm from Minnesota, I can't ice skate. So I want to make that really clear. But ice skating to me is this beautiful way of gliding across the ice. And when you're ice skating, you're going from point A to point B in a beautiful gliding motion. But if you
Hmm.
pay attention to ice skating, you recognize that our skates are only on the ice 1 foot at a time.
Right.
And if we continue to put our 1 foot down in our family and allowing the other to rest for a moment, and then we
Hmm.
put the next foot down for our work and allow the other to rest for a moment, it's in the back and forth subtleties that allow us to continue to move forward with glide and without the shoulds, without the unrealistic expectations for ourselves, and we can continue to move forward in this beautiful motion. And so whenever I
Hmm.
get myself stuck into the overwhelmed mindset, I'm like, okay, Lachelle, are you on your tightrope or
Right.
are you skating? And how are you going to choose to be right now? Right?
Right. And that glide. And that's why, like I said, I talk about boundaries. That's my word for it, because when I'm a mom, I'm not checking my work email. I'm not answering calls. I'm not doing those other things. I am completely in that boundary. And
Yes.
I advertise it and I make it clear, like, this is where I am right now,
Yeah.
because I'm going to show up 100, percent here. And then
Yeah.
when I'm in a different space, I'll be there. When I'm with
Yes.
my, friends, I'm 100% there. And so it's not going to always look like equal every
Right.
single day.
Right.
They say to look at it more from the terms of the number of hours you have in a week versus a day.
Mhm.
And that's where you can find a little bit more of that harmony of recognizing, on the weekends, you're going to have more family time. Sure, you're going to have more time
Yeah.
to do certain
Yeah.
things, as well as during the week. Everybody's going to have maybe some other things going on, but you can still find that kind of connection that you're looking
Yeah.
for. Because I think that's where some of it comes from too. Like, we're feeling disconnected, so we're out of balance. But I
Mhm.
think if you find ways to find that connection with the things that are important to you and that you prioritize, and you shape your time around that, that's how you make it work. Because like you said, if even to use your skating example, if you try and do 2 feet, 1 foot twice and then go back to the first
Yeah.
one, or double and
Yeah.
go too fast, it doesn't have the same rhythm as that easy kind of pendulum back and forth.
Right, absolutely. And I think that there's so much that we can unpack in this. And I just wanted to say that you're giving us so much hope, honestly, because I think that when I think of myself being in that should place, right?
Mhm.
And it's like I'm working with my kids or I'm playing with my kids and I'm thinking about work. I'm
Mhm.
wasting a lot of excess
Yes.
energy in this space that I could be harnessing on them and loving them
Right.
100% wholly. And the same goes for work. And I think that when
Mhm.
we can give ourselves that permission to truly harness that energy and to be present with where we are, we can get so much more done. And it's not always about the quantity, but the quality. When I
Right.
give my kids 100% attention for 10 minutes, it feels like an hour to them. But if
Yeah.
I give them like, half-ass attention for an hour, it feels like 10 minutes. And
Mhm.
that's the honest truth, don't you think?
Absolutely. The quality of the time, regardless of whether it's with your kids, even if it's with your coffee, sitting outside for 5 minutes in the sunshine can be so transformative compared to, being at the gym for an hour if you're
Yeah.
not really focused. So it's just a matter of how you focus that intentionality that gives it the power to change how you feel.
Yes.
And when you feel different, you show up different.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to dive into your framework because it
Mhm.
sounds so like honestly transformational for the people who have access to it. So can you take us down a few of your favorite parts and how you implement it or how you help other people implement it to make change?
Absolutely. It is very simple, but that's not always easy because it kind of contradicts some of the ingrained habits we already have. But
Yes.
it's basically made up of your mindset, all
Okay.
those thoughts we have, the limiting beliefs, and changing those, as well as looking at our time planning. I don't even want to call it time management, but the planning gives it an intentionality of not necessarily
Yes.
making it rigid as to what it's going to look like, but just that certain things happen, the things that have to happen, the things you maybe delegate, and the things that you really want to happen. And then the last part is that self-care, and looking at those eight or nine different areas I listed, and really being intentional. And my favorite part is options. Like, I love coming up with creative. There's so many different
Yes.
options and ways to fit those into your day. You can be literally almost every hour fitting
Right.
in 1 or 2 minutes of something that's going to help fill you back up. Even a lot
Yes.
of it's physiological, some of the benefits, it's subconscious, it's all these different things, so that when life
100%.
throws one of those curveballs at you,
Yeah.
you're not going to react in a way that you regret or that you overreacted. You're going to be able to take that pause
Yes.
and just kind of handle things in a different way and adapt differently.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I want to unpack this real quick, guys, because I love word pictures and I love to take, examples and bring it to life. And I want
Mm-hmm.
to create this beautiful secrecy with all of the things that you just said. So here's my nerdy
Yeah.
example. Okay. So I just started washing my face with big girl skincare like not that long ago. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I joke around about it because whatever happened to fall on my face in the shower, whatever shampoo happened to just like drip on my face was good enough for me. If I had to get really, really clear and vulnerable and raw with you right now, Daniela, I would tell you that it had less to do with the fact that I was just, frugal.
Mm-hmm.
It had more to do with the fact that I didn't believe that I was worthy enough of
Yeah.
spending the time and the money on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Yeah.
when I started to decide that skincare and self care in that moment was important enough for me. And then I started to unlock the fact that, oh my gosh, this feels really good to give myself the permission to spend a couple minutes on myself, too. In fact, like
Right.
that's not that much. And a few extra dollars gave me this confidence and self-worth that I didn't even need or really know that I needed until I had it, if
Yeah.
that makes any sense. And it had less to do with the fact that my skin started to change because I took care of it. It had more to do with the fact that my mindset started to change. I started to view myself as someone worthy of having big girl skincare. I started to view myself as somebody worthy of being
Mm-hmm.
able to go out of my house without having any makeup on. And it all started with that tiny, tiny little decision to spend the time and money on myself. And so I feel like that's such a great example of how to blend all of these beautiful things in here. And I
Right.
think that the time part of it is a good demonstration of, I think I was stuck in time scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like,
People
well,
think I
I
don't
have
have time for a morning
so
routine
yeah,
or a nighttime routine, when really it is just 2 minutes here, three
yeah,
minutes there. Even
yeah,
when it comes to movement, I found some great like 5 minute yoga, 4 minute
yes.
hits. Like, there's ways to fit in what you prioritize.
Yes.
There's
So
always
let's
an option.
let's dive into some. I want to just break down those three little areas here for a few
Mhm.
minutes and have you kind of give us some of your absolute favorite tools and tips that we can listen to today and perhaps even implement. So what are some of your favorite mindset exercises or words of wisdom that you could help us to really see the importance of switching our mindset around this stuff?
Absolutely. Mindset, to kind of give a visual example, like you said, I look at our mindset as like a trail in the woods. And the trail that gets used the most often is going to be the easiest to follow. It's the most worn down, and it's the path of least resistance. And so when we have a lot of those shoulds, those negative thoughts, and those limiting beliefs, it's going to get ingrained over time. And so that's our go-to thought, unfortunately. And so when it
Yes.
comes to shifting your mindset, you have to look at it like you're creating a new trail in the woods. And so initially, it's going to be a little messy. It might be a little hard to find. You have to intentionally kind of stop the thought, say, I pivot it to something different, and start walking that path. And over time, with practice, is how you ingrain that new mindset, make that trail your new well-worn path, so
Yeah.
that you easily fall into it, in times of stress or when you're just busy or all those kind of things. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of like how I visually explain mindset, because
Yeah.
it can be such an abstract term. People are like, what does that even mean? But if you
Right.
think of it
Right.
like a path, you're
Mhm.
creating a new path, literally a new neural pathway in your brain.
Yeah.
If you want to think of the science behind it, like,
Yeah.
and the more you repeat it and the more you practice it, the easier it's going to be to think those positive thoughts.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to geek out real quick because I'm a nerd when it comes to brain science. So I'm just going to like give you guys this like really cool expansion on what she just said. We can literally retrain our brains to create those different pathways or those different trails in the woods. Just
Mhm.
because you've thought something a certain way for your whole life does not mean that you are stuck in that same pattern. You have to just make the decision to try to find a new trail, and it's completely possible. And what is so fascinating, you guys, is that 95% of what goes on inside of our head is actually in our subconscious, which means that we're only aware of about 5% of our thoughts. So if you find that you are on negative repeat language constantly over and over and over again, like 90 to 85% of our thoughts are actually on repeat. There's nothing wrong with you. It's the way that our brain is wired. But what Daniela is telling you is that you can literally decide today that you are going to change that chatter. You're going to change that negative loop that's going on in your subconscious and become a conscious driver of what goes on up here. And it will literally change your life.
Yes. There's a great book by Carol Dweck. It's called
Yes.
Mindset and the Power of
Yes.
it. And it does has such great examples as well of going from a fixed mindset of being stuck in the way things always are to
Yes.
that growth mindset of seeing possibility and options.
Yeah, and speaking of Carol Dweck, I think that so oftentimes we don't even realize that we are stuck in a fixed mindset when we allow ourselves to accept labels that
Hmm.
we have owned for our whole lives and that we don't think that there's a possibility to get out of that. So if I have the label that I am not a runner or that I am too out of shape to work out, or I have a label that I am too busy for self-care, or I have a label that blah blah blah, that makes me feel like I am kind of stuck in this label. And
Right.
that's a fixed mindset, friends. So you get a chance to choose a different label at any
Yep.
point in your life.
They say the first step in doing that is just adding the word yet. I'm not a runner yet. I'm not a chef yet.
Yes.
Any of those things. Just add the word yet, and it begins that shift. It begins that new path.
Yes, 100%, because it gives you just that little bit of a hope that is possible. And I promise you it is if you have intention around it. Okay, now let's talk about the time. What did you
Mhm.
call it? Time intentionality, time
Time planning.
planning. I love it. I'm a nerd when it comes to time planning too. So there's a reason that we're here together. Like you and I
Yes.
are like kindred spirits. So
Yeah, I love time planning. I know some people, the idea of, when they think of time management or all those kind of things, they're like, it's too rigid. My day doesn't work that way. There's too much on the fly. And so it's not about micromanaging your schedule. Sometimes it might be if when you go through and you prioritize what needs to happen that day,
Mhm.
those things are obviously your non-negotiables. But the other things that you want to happen, just by writing them in, just by intentionally focusing that these are going to happen today,
Yeah.
you can find a way to make it happen regardless of whatever it is, depending on what the circumstances and what you're looking to add. It might be like, again, you got to be flexible with the time part of it, but your time planning, it could be, like I said, 5 minutes of movement here, you go for a 10-minute walk during lunch, you go for something else later in the day, and you've done 20 to 30 minutes where you didn't think, I don't have 30 minutes
Yeah.
to work out today,
Yeah.
but you might have it in smaller bursts throughout your day. Maybe your time for movement is you have to drop the kids off at soccer practice. Instead of taking the 15-minute drive home for 10 minutes and then you turn around and go back, go for a walk near the field where they're at, fit in
Yeah.
something else, use your commute to listen to an audio book, listen to a podcast, or call a friend or do something. Like, there's ways. I know multitasking is not great, but there's ways to habit stack certain things that are going to happen together in a way that they're not conflicting when it comes to your focus and your energy.
Oh my gosh, that is so wise. And I think one of the things, okay, so this is one of my things that I am not okay, how can I put this? I before I had kids, I was always early. Now
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with it a little bit. I'm working on it. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I would get caught in my mindset is that, oh my gosh, like I'm running late. And so when I'd get to work, I'd automatically go to the elevator. But what I discovered was that it only took 3 minutes for me to get from the ground level to the seventh floor of the hospital that I was working at. 3 minutes.
Yep.
So it's like I could build in 7 flights of stairs in a quick 3 minute little jaunt, as long as I could get out of the house 3 minutes before I needed to, you guys. So I just love that there are ways that, I love how you said habit stacking and looking at things differently, being
Mhm.
resourceful and thinking, how can I maximize my time to be able to use it in the best way possible?
Right.
Right.
Park in the far spot at the grocery store. I take an extra lap if I go to use the restroom at work. I'll go up the stairs around the next floor and then come back down before going back to my desk. It doesn't always have to be
So
the
smart.
closest spot or the direct beeline
Yeah.
possible.
That is so smart. And then you mentioned the non-negotiables a few times. So I want to
Mhm.
circle back around with that. What is a non-negotiable for our audience so that they can understand exactly what you mean by that?
I mean, I think for each person, it's going to be a little bit different.
Mhm.
Obviously, our jobs, a lot of times financially, they're non-negotiable. We
Mhm.
need to be there. We need to show up. We need
Yep.
to be present. Our kids have activities. You might have activities. Balancing some of those key areas in our life. Everyone needs to be fed. We need to find a way. There's obviously creative ways to do that. There's so many ways, whether it's not always you doing it and things like that,
Right.
but being able to figure out for each person, it does again take some time to plan your time. That's why it's intentional. You're not winging it by the seat of your pants.
Right.
There is some investment up front about what you want to have done, what your non-negotiables are personally, as well as then looking at what you're going to delegate and whether it's outsource or get help with,
Mhm.
and what you're going to delete completely. But once you do that, it almost becomes second nature. It's not as much effort to think about and do those things.
Oh my gosh, I love that. When it comes to time management, sorry, time planning, it's such a like I have it.
It's different because everyone gets stuck in time management.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those buzzwords that people have this already like, oh, yeah, I know what that means. And
Yeah.
so I'm
No.
trying to change the conversation.
Love it so much. And so, like, own your time like a boss. That's what we're talking
Mhm.
about right now. What other things regarding time planning have we not already discussed that you really want to make sure to mention?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I think being having grace when it comes to your time. Again,
Yep.
if you let go of the rigidity, everybody else will too. I
Yes.
think people are more forgiving than we are, and so it ties into the mindset part as well. When it comes to our time, we
Yeah.
looking at it from a week perspective versus a day. And really, you figure a lot out about yourself when you
Yes.
start to plan this way about what's important to you, what you're willing maybe to get up
Mhm.
at, 20 minutes earlier for,
Yeah.
that type of thing. And once it becomes ingrained, you can't live without it. You're like, how did I even function before fitting this in?
100%. Okay, so I want to move into the last kind of pillar of your framework, which is self care. So, what are
Mhm.
some of your absolute favorite things that you want to share about self care, words of wisdom, exercises that we can start to do today to help move us forward?
I love just the options available when it comes to self care. I like breaking the mold outside of the stereotypes. I love a good massage and a girl's getaway, but I also love in the morning, I do fit in 20 minutes to myself where I fit in some strength training, some yoga, and some meditation, all within like a half hour, just because
Yeah.
I don't want to be exhausted, but I don't want to not get it done. And so I
Right.
think finding out what works for you, what's important. Maybe you're more at night and you want to read, or you want to, instead of saying, well, like, well, I don't have time to read, maybe you read a paragraph and then you fall asleep. Maybe you read a page and you fall asleep.
Yeah.
Change the expectations about what it looks like and how long it's going to be.
Mhm.
Um, Making that time for your coffee and taking a moment to really smell it, really
Mhm.
savor it. They say savor, when you savor a moment, you savor that point in time. That's where the joy comes from. That's where the memory imprints. And that's
Yeah.
what helps kind of give you that gratitude and that kind of filling your cup up that everybody says, and that
Yeah.
happiness. And then just being able to, again, look at different ways. Maybe, like you said, for you, it was your face products that helped you show up differently. Just the way you dress, the way that alone can set the tone for your day.
Yeah.
I love air pop popcorn. And so when I take the time to make it, I stand in front of it and I
Yeah.
smell it, and I get to really just, it helps me ground me. And so you find those things, whether they're silly, whether they're fun, and you can do them with your kids, you can do them with your family.
Yeah.
I don't think self care has to happen in isolation. Laughing, at watching a funny movie, it connects you. It releases, all sorts of stress relieving hormones. There's so many ways
Yeah.
when you think about it, like, oh my gosh, I'm not just sitting on the couch watching Netflix. I'm connecting, I'm laughing, and I'm practicing self care. We're able to enjoy it in such a different way.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. And again, I just think that your three pillars go so beautifully together. So I'm going to give you guys another example that I try to use some of these same principles. So I used to be really, really embarrassed that I loved naps as much as I do. But I
Mhm.
do. I love naps. Like my friend gave me a cup that said world's best napper. But one of the things that I did was I had to number one switch my mindset around it and to say like naps are actually something that allow me to get into the brainwave of creativity. In
Mhm.
fact, Thomas Edison, the world's greatest inventor, took naps all the time, and he would hold a rock. And so, right if he started to fall asleep, the rock would fall, and it would wake him up enough to keep him in this creative space inside of his brain. And so I find that even just setting my alarm and just quietly, I might not even fall asleep, but having my eyes closed for 20 minutes a day allows me to
Mhm.
start to fall asleep where I get into this creative space, you guys, and I will like all of a sudden get up and get on my note section on my phone and write down this idea. And then I'd close my eyes again. And sure enough, it happens a couple minutes later. I had to switch my mindset around it. I had it on my calendar today, me time. That's what I needed to do in that moment. So be intentional about what went on my calendar, and then giving myself space to do it allows me to show up the best that I can when my family comes home in a couple minutes. And so allowing ourselves to look at things differently, to plan and to be intentional around it, and to give ourselves that permission to do it actually will help to elevate everything that we're doing in our lives. And Daniela, girl, I have so much respect for you and everything that you're talking about. Like I can completely just jam out talking to you about this stuff like all day long. Is there
I
anything
know.
that we haven't had a chance to talk about before we pop off?
I think just recognizing the necessity of it, because, like I've said, this isn't about just you. I think people perceive it, well, if I'm taking care of myself, I'm neglecting somebody else, I'm
Mhm.
neglecting something else. And you're actually helping those other things in so many different ways, whether it's the way you show up after, the
Mhm.
opportunities you're giving them to explore, grow, and connect. Like I said in the beginning, my origin story, my kids were 4 and 6 months old. They're 21 and 16 now. And,
Yeah.
and we talk about these things, and
Yes.
you can see the way it's impacted them. You can see the way that they've internalized and used those things that they saw us doing. And so the necessity of really not just thinking of, I'll get to it when I have time, or I don't have the money right now, or, it's not worth it. All the things that we say are important to us will benefit from this, you
Yes.
know? And so just recognizing that and taking, whether it's 5 minutes here, I even share, starting your day with a glass of water and doing that 3 or 4 times throughout a day for 1 minute, glass of water, a couple deep breaths, you will start making changes.
Oh my gosh. Live by intention, guys. Like live by design. And that's what Daniela is trying to teach us to do today. I love that so much. If you guys have not already subscribed, if you have not already left a review or a comment on here, let us know like what your favorite takeaway was from my conversation with Daniela so that she gets a chance to feel how much you just love and appreciate her. If you haven't shared this out yet on social media, be sure to do it. Take a screenshot, put it in your stories, let people know all about this amazing conversation and how much Daniela can and add to the quality of our life with everything that she imparted with us today. You guys, it has been such an amazing, amazing conversation. And I would love to finish it off, Daniela, with you asking our audience a question that they can think about that is going to allow them to move from where they are to where they want to be.
Okay. You got me on the spot on that
I
one.
know, right?
If you could see in the future and realize, what the impact would have by taking care of yourself now, what would you hope somebody said about you in the way that you either gave back to them or showed up for them? And then that's where you need to kind of put your attention and start focusing. So
Oh my
what would you want
gosh.
people to say about the way you showed up?
I have goosebumps. I love that question so much. Thank you so much. You guys, thanks for listening, for tuning in. And I will see you all right here next week, same time, same place. Thanks for tuning into the Unstuck podcast. And thanks, Daniela.
Bye.